Iowa City is a unique community. This uniqueness is shaped by the people who contribute their time, their energies, and their ideas to Iowa City and the university. Welcome to a series of biographical interviews of special women and men who've affected this community. Their contributions have been valuable, their lives creative and full. What brought them here? Who influenced them? What contributions are they the most pleased about? These and other questions will be explored during this series of interviews entitled, Tell Me Your Story. Dr. Louis January has had a distinguished profession as a cardiology professor and clinician at the University of Iowa's Hospital and College of Medicine. His career spans 50 years at Iowa. In 1989, he was awarded the Department of Internal Medicine's Distinguished Service Award in appreciation for his years of service as teacher, clinician, and advisor. His leadership abilities were evident in his organizing the cardiovascular division at the university, the Fellows Training Program, the Iowa-Oxford Exchange Program, and serving in various positions on countless committees. Dr. January was president of the American Heart Association in 1966 and vice president of the International Cardiology Federation from 1970 to 78. His interests, though, range far beyond medicine, as he is an avid dance patron. He and his wife, Eloise, have been supporters of the world-famous Joffrey Ballet since the late 60s. He has served as a member of the National Committee for the Joffrey and is presently a member of the advisory board of the Joffrey Foundation. And when he took a break from his involvement in medicine, education, and the arts, he was a committed gardener. His lovely and unique wildflower and rock garden was a showcase for other gardeners. He is the father of 2 sons and a grandfather of 2 children. Welcome to Tell Me Your Story, Dr. January.
Thank you.
Let's begin your story in eastern Colorado, where you grew up, and that's a long ways from eastern rural Colorado to medical school. What was the story in that?
Well, I was born in a little town, 150 people.
Named what?
Haswell, Colorado. And I went through the 10th grade there. Then we moved to Florence, Colorado, where I graduated from a big high school. And the Latin teacher got me a scholarship at Colorado College. And there I became interested in science. Mm-hmm. And then on to medical school 4 years later.
Where did you go to medical school?
At the University of Colorado, and the medical school is in Denver, not in Boulder.
Okay, so you're in Denver in medical school, and you could have gone any place in the United States, but you came to Iowa City.
Well, that's an interesting story. We didn't have faculty advisors at the University of Colorado in those days. So I had applied at a community hospital in Ohio, and I took my application to the dean's office to have it signed so I could send it in. And he looked at it, and to my utter amazement, tore it in 2 and threw it in the wastebasket. And I thought, well, great heavens, am I not going to graduate? I'm the second in my class. He said, you have no business in a hospital like that. You go to a university hospital. Now you go back and think it over. And as I was about to leave, he said, you might consider Iowa. It's a fine hospital. And you go and talk to the man who's teaching you gynecology. He had his training at Iowa. So I went up to see him, and the first thing he said was, well, let me see your hand. And I thought, well, I didn't come up here to have my palm read. He said, you have a flat thumb. You will do very well in Iowa City. It's the spiked beer capital of the world. So that's how I got to Iowa.
This was before the matching, computerized.
Oh yes, before all that. Yes, we didn't interview.
Right.
No one.
So it was the deans who knew the dean.
The dean who knew the dean.
And here you came to
Yeah.
Iowa. Were you married at the time?
No, no.
And is this when you met your wife?
After I became a resident here in medicine, my wife came here from Ohio State, where she had graduated as a nurse and a bachelor's degree in education. And she came here on the faculty of the then School of Nursing in the Infectious Disease Division.
So tell me you've been a part of now the university, is it 50 years?
Yes.
What significant changes have you witnessed over the years in both your department and the College of Medicine?
Well, when I came back from World War II in 1946 and joined the faculty, in the Department of Medicine, I was the 5th faculty member. Now, there are 160 full-time faculty in the Department of Medicine, and we have the largest research budget of any department in the entire university. So that's really
That says a lot.
that's fantastic. The growth, of course, of university hospitals, the physical plant, without the state putting any money into this. Most people don't understand this. This has all been done by gifts, grants, and brilliant management, you see, by the director of the hospital. And of course, the university has become world famous too. So all of this, you see, is something that I feel very proud
To be a part of. Now, when you first came, was there a cardiology division?
No,
Weren't you instrumental in organizing that?
No, but in those days, specialization had not yet really arrived. It came along while I was a resident, but a division of cardiovascular disease didn't come along until in the late 70s.
Okay. Now, also, you were instrumental in organizing the Fellows Program?
I had
training program?
an NIH, National Institute of Health, grant to organize a clinical cardiology training program. And that was in 1966. And since that time, we have trained several hundreds of cardiologists who are now in positions throughout the world.
And then you had also an international program, was the Iowa-Oxford program that you were a part of.
Well, together with the head of medicine at the Radcliffe Infirmary at Oxford, whom I knew before he went to Oxford, we had been exchanging senior students for a short period of time in a clerkship while he was at Yale. And he was very, very pleased with it. And when he went to Oxford, he said, "Why can't we just keep this up?" And I said, "Well, we can." And he said, "Yes, but I must tell you, we don't have any money."
Oh,
So our university paid the stipend of the Iowa student. Well, the Iowa students were so happy with this experience and so well received that they came back and put the pressure on me to see if we couldn't bring an Oxford student over here every year.
is it still going on?
And it's still going on now. Our first Oxford student was in 1966, and the first Oxford student to Iowa was in 1968.
Tell me, looking back, was there a certain person or event that had a major influence on you? That Latin teacher who got you a scholarship to Colorado College?
I've had distinguished teachers. The Latin teacher, yes. The head of biology at Colorado College. The head of medicine at the University of Colorado. And then when I came here, Fred M. Smith was the chairman of the Department of Medicine. And he had come here from Rush Medical School.
Chicago.
He was a distinguished cardiologist. And Horace M. Corns was a marvelous teacher. So I just really never thought anything other than being a cardiologist.
You were fortunate with all these wonderful people along the way.
You bet.
You've had a remarkable basket of honors and awards from the President of the American Heart Association to the International Cardiology Federation, the Vice Chairman of the AMA section of the Cardiovascular Disease, and the Helen B. Taussig Award. Of all those things, is there one that you're most pleased about?
Oh, I suppose the Gold Heart Award of the American Heart Association. I am pleased that my alma mater, Colorado College, conferred an honorary degree on me in 1966. The awards in this university have been very meaningful. And the Taussig Award, that was named for Helen Taussig, who was who developed the Blue Baby operation. She is in history, she's dead now, in history is one of the most famous physicians, and certainly one of the most famous women ever in medicine.
How many lives have been saved?
and
Was she in Maryland?
At Johns Hopkins.
Johns Hopkins. Your devotion to the Joffrey Ballet is nearly as well known as your prestige in the field of cardiology. There's a wonderful story about falling in love with the ballet. Could you share that with us?
Well, I first saw a ballet when I was a senior medical student at Denver, when the old Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo came there, and they did Swan Lake. Well, you see, that's, if you at the least bit sensitive to music and to ballet, that will grab you forever. Well, I didn't have any other opportunities. When I came here, there was no ballet until years later when I was going to New York frequently. And I saw the Joffrey dance in New York as well as all other companies, and fell in love with the Joffrey. And then they came here, you see, when Hancher Auditorium opened.
And weren't you quite instrumental in getting them to come here? Or?
Well, I was on the committee that had been appointed by Howard Bowen, I guess, to arrange the first year's program at Hancher. And in that year, you see, we had Nureyev here also with the Canadians and the Joffrey. So, and from then, of course, dance in Iowa City has just exploded.
Well, how did you personally get to know Robert Joffrey and the ballet?
I met him in New York only once. So I got to know him well, and finally we were devoted friends. But I got to know him well after the company came here the first time, when the season of Hancher opened.
Well, you organized the Iowa Friends of the Joffrey, did you not?
Yes, yes.
What was it like going to people and saying, now listen, we're going to be behind this, the ballet in the cornfields of Iowa? What was the reaction?
Well, it was, the first year we raised $1,200, which wouldn't buy a ticket for very many people at today's prices to the ballet.
Right. So, okay, that was the first year.
That was the first year. It steadily increased, and there are about 100 people, mostly in Iowa City, who regularly contribute to Iowa Friends of the Joffrey every year. And then, of course, once Hancher Auditorium and the University of Iowa Foundation became involved also with the Joffrey, then that, of course, led to the Nutcracker and to the upcoming Cinderella.
You must be very pleased about that.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's wonderful.
There's a wonderful story that I read in an article about you, about going to Leningrad and accidentally meeting up with the Joffrey.
Well, we were going to be in Leningrad on a trip, and I learned that the Joffrey was going to be there at the same time having been sent there by the State Department. So I called Robert Joffrey and said, how can I get a ticket? How can we get tickets? And he said, well, I don't even know at this stage the name of the theater where we're dancing. So he said, when you get there, you find out, nor do I know the hotel we'll be in. You find out where we are, and you contact me, and I'll see that you get tickets. Well, we checked in at our hotel, and I asked at that desk about tickets for the Joffrey, and this nice lady in tourist desk said, those have never gone on sale. If you can get one, get an extra one. Get one for me. Mm-hmm. Well, we found out where they were staying, the company, went to that, and we had a car and a driver, and a guide. And so we went to that hotel and found out where they were dancing. And they'd gone to rehearsal. So I said to our guide, do you think you could get us into the stage entrance of this theater? She said, well, I don't know. I've never tried to do something like that. Let's go see. She was really a remarkable woman. Well, we drove up in this dark alley, and the stage entrance was, you don't just go in like you do over here at Hancher. The KCBG was 4 of them guarding the door. She saw that and she said, now you get your American face right up here close to me, because they may not believe what I'm going to say. Well, she talked to them, and my Lord, they parted, opened the door for us, and almost bowed, and we went in. The door closed, and I turned to the guide and I said, what on earth did you say? Well, she said some of it was the truth. I said, I have here a distinguished American physician who has arrived in Leningrad within the hour. We'd been there 3 days. He's a personal friend of Mr. Joffrey. There's been an illness in Mr. Joffrey's family in New York, and he must see him immediately. So that's how we got in the door. Well, from then on, of course, and it was the dancers were so surprised. One of the major dancers started running through where we were backstage, skidded to a stop and looked up and said, my God, aren't you from Iowa City?
In Leningrad, that's a wonderful story and a wonderful association. Now, when the Joffreys come here, haven't you given celebrations? Didn't you have one a while back in Iowa Barn?
Every time they've come over the years, my wife and I have entertained the whole company at dinner. We had a house in those days where we could do that over on Lexington, a big house. When they were here for the to rehearse for a month to get ready for the Nutcracker, Dr. and Mrs. Clifton, who have a lovely big farm north of town, we got together with them and had a country party, and we, with a big pig roast and horseshoes and badminton and volleyball, meals in the barn, and a country band, dancing. Well, some of those, they just didn't believe it. They'd never been to a party like this. They still talk about it, many of them who were here.
I would imagine so.
They loved it.
What a gift you gave them. I mean, they've given Iowans a gift, but what a gift for them to do that.
Oh, they loved it.
Now, your associations with the Joffrey just go on, and a while back in 1981, weren't you given a surprise party at Hancher?
That's when I had when I became emeritus. The Department of Medicine had as we usually do when someone becomes emeritus, they have a party, a dinner. This was something special, however, because we not only had the dinner, they had the dinner for me, but they brought 3 members of Joffrey to here to dance, which was a total surprise to me. I didn't know anything about it until the curtain went up.
Isn't I bet you're not often surprised, are you?
No. My son leaned over and handed me a handkerchief. He said, "I knew you'd cry."
Speaking of sons, before I have other questions, you have two sons. Tell me a little bit about them.
Well, my oldest son is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin, and then came here for his PhD in history. And he's an archivist in the Archives Division of the state government in Indiana. My youngest son, Craig, graduated at Simpson and then came here in graduate school in physiology and then medicine, so that he got both a PhD and an MD. And he's now the acting director of the cardiovascular division at the University of Chicago Hospital, and an associate professor. We're very proud of him.
There's that
Another
gene-
cardiologist.
Another cardiologist. I'm sure you're proud of both of your sons, but that cardiology gene code is now implanted and
Yeah.
going on to the next generation. I don't know if many people know, maybe who are new to Iowa City, Dr. January, that you've been an avid gardener for many, many years, and that your wildflower and your rock garden was quite a remarkable place to visit, and you've had tours there. How did you get interested in wildflowers, and where did these come from, this hobby?
Well, when we were able to buy that particular lot from Dr. Albright, adjoining it was a ravine which had never been disturbed. It was totally natural. He didn't sell that to us originally, and so we built our house, and some years later, with an option for the ravine. When we got the ravine, it was at about the time when the Coral Reservoir was being built, which was to raise the level of Lake McBride by several feet and flood a big area where natural, wonderful wild flowers and wild plants were all going to disappear, you see. So you didn't feel the least bit in trouble with the environment.
That you were just transplanting them.
So I went, yeah, you were saving them. So I spent weeks on weekends going out there with bushel baskets and digging up wonderful plants and planting that ravine, which had a little, well, it was a dry stream except when it rained, and with paths and a couple of Japanese bridges over it. And
What kind of wildflowers did you find out
almost
there?
everything that grows in Iowa, almost everything. I had, but particularly shade things, because the ravine was heavily shaded.
And you also had rocks, and there's a story
I've
to
collected
that.
rocks for years. In the days when the airlines used to weigh your luggage, my son would meet me at the Cedar Rapids Airport and pick up the suitcase, and he'd say, "Well, what did it cost to get you home this time?"
You mean in all
'Cause I
your
brought rocks home.
rocks home? Some people bring postcards and book. You brought rocks home.
Yeah.
So when in all your travels with the American Heart Association and the International Cardiology Federation, you'd find rocks from all over the world. And
Well, you don't bring all over the world. You don't bring big rocks home.
oh, you're talking big rocks?
I brought big rocks home for the
Oh.
outside garden.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I also brought little tiny ones from all over the world. In fact, I have two teak tables with glass tops that I made myself that I've indexed all these rocks, and we have one of those in our bedroom and one in my study.
So how did you kept track of the rocks?
Yes, I have them all cataloged.
I mean,
And
you
they've got
pick up a rock and there'd
they've
be
got
a
a number on the back. Yeah, I could look up and find out
where it came from. That's amazing.
And I recently received a prize rock. A friend was in Germany in the early spring and brought me a nice piece of the Berlin Wall. That's a prize.
That
rock to
is a
own.
prize. Not that. So what are you going to do with that?
Well, I'm going to mount that on on a little marble base and have hands make a brass plate for me.
A brass plate.
That's special, you know. That's
Oh.
a special souvenir.
Well, I was going to bring you one home, but that isn't. It'll be nothing compared to the
Oh,
part
I'd
of the
like to have it.
Berlin.
Please bring it.
Okay. Oh, that's wonderful. Was this your kind of golf? I mean, was
This is
gardening
my
your
golf
release?
and swimming and tennis and all the rest of it. Growing up in eastern Colorado, you had no opportunity to learn to swim as a child. Nothing except a stock tank. So I never was a good swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
And I started out to play golf when I was in medical school, and I didn't have any instruction.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of getting better and better, I got worse and worse, and finally just gave that up. And when I got interested in gardening, I did all the work myself, and there was no time on weekends. For anything else.
And the bridges, did you have somebody make your bridges?
No,
or-
I made them myself. I think they've had to be replaced.
Well, now, I called the other day, and your work at the office. What are you involved in now? What are you working?
Well, I'm almost completely retired, but an emeritus professor in this university. You know, this is a unique university. You're guaranteed the use of an office and some limited secretarial expense. And then I have worked part-time since I became emeritus, reading electrocardiograms, teaching medical students physical diagnosis. I quit seeing patients about 5 years ago because I was working less and less and less, and there's no way you're going to follow patients and not be there, you see. So. And I'm still, this year I'm reading a few electrocardiograms, but I'm not doing much over there. But I go over most every day that I'm in town.
You probably know, but I need to tell you and tell the audience that you've made a big difference in a lot of young men and women's lives. I just met an old student of yours who probably graduated medical school in about 1960, and he found out I was interviewing you, and he said, if it hadn't been for Dr. January, I wouldn't have gone into internal medicine or cardiology.
Who was this?
Max Bowler.
Oh, yes, I remember him.
Yes, he
Yes.
practices in Minnesota, in Minneapolis.
Yes,
So
I remember him.
I thought that was a wonderful, wonderful story about you. And I appreciate you coming today and sharing some of your stories, Dr. January.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
My guest has been Dr. Louis January, teacher, clinician, advisor in the Department of Internal Medicine. Dr. January's distinguished career at Iowa includes serving as president of the American Heart Association and vice president of the International Cardiology Federation. He has been a mentor and an influence to innumerable young men and women in the field of medicine. Dr. January has been involved in Dance Focus, organized the Iowa Friends of the Joffrey, and currently serves on the Joffrey's advisory board of the foundation. I quote from an award, "In medicine, education, and the arts, Lou has been a constant source of hard work, new ideas, and generous support. Iowa City and the university are indeed fortunate that Dr. January chose this community to be his home."